request, please let us know when your request is announced. Minutes of this meeting are being recorded. Therefore, anyone wishing to conduct business will be asked to come to the microphone, provide their name and address, present their requests or concerns, and answer any questions of the Planning Commission. Groups are requested to select a spokesperson to express the group's concern, because each side will be allowed 10 minutes to speak. Plots, rezoning, revised master plans, and street renaming require a public hearing, after which the Planning Commission will deliberate and render its decision. Planning Commission members with a personal or financial interest in any petitioner's request are required to recuse themselves. Tonight, the members are Leslie Stone, Cruz Reeves, Buddy Hardwick, Reggie Don, Frank Cook, Ann Clemens, Gary Smith, and myself, James Reed. Members of the land use staff are Mr. Warren Adams, Tanya Ingram, Andrea Spriggs, and Ashadre Anderson. Did I butcher your name? Correct me, please. Ashandra Anderson. Are there, Tanya, are there any changes to the agenda?
No, sir.
All right. Hopefully everybody's got a chance to look over the minutes from the last meeting. Are there any changes, additions, comments? All right, motion is in order.
Move to approve.
Second.
A motion has been made and second. All those in favor? Those opposed?
Unanimous.
All right. All right, Tanya, it's on you.
Item number 1, Flowers and White Engineering representing CO Properties LLC, requesting to rezone 3 parcels of land on the west side of Fischer Road, approximately 500 feet or south of Mobile Highway, from an Ag 1 district to an R99 zoning district.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Kenneth White representing CL Properties, like Tanya mentioned. I was here last month for this rezoning request for this RV park, and we voluntarily pushed it to this meeting so we had time to meet with Hooper Academy. Me and Frank Thomas, the potential purchaser, met with Hooper Academy, Darrell Free, the headmaster, and some of the board members there, and had several phone calls with them. We had a very constructive meeting, and we've come to an agreement, I believe. Do y'all have that letter of support from them? So,
Yes, we do.
yeah, so we had a great meeting, and we're going to put some berms and some like a fence, like we talked about. And but yeah, I can answer any questions should you have any.
Let me make a comment on behalf of the Planning Commission. You're taking it back, delaying it, and meeting with them. I'd like to compliment you on that, and compliment you all getting together and coming to common grounds on the situation, because it could have gotten out of hand. It really could have gotten crazy. So you're taking it back and meeting with them. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you saying that, Mr. Reed. We've been in several discussions on other pieces of property, so yes, so I appreciate you saying that.
And will be some more in the future.
I'm sure there will, Mr. Hardwick. Yes, that's right.
Communication is very important, and
can't agree more.
understanding
Yes.
is very important. Are there any questions from the members of the commission?
Yeah, so this is gonna be a travel trailer park, correct?
It's going to be an RV park. That's
Right,
correct. Yes.
Right, travel trailer.
Yes, sir.
RV park, okay.
Yes, sir. That's the proposed use. That's right.
Are there any questions from members of the audience? Comments? All right, motion is in order.
Motion to approve.
I would like to move to approve this motion with a Q on it,
What is the,
so that it's qualified as a travel trailer park only. So that if they decide they don't want to do that, then they can't just do whatever they want to do down in there. And I don't think they should have a problem with that if that's their intent.
Yeah, I believe that was the request we had last time, so yeah,
Do you have a problem with that?
not at all.
Okay.
So make sure this, so for an RV park, is that correct?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
KOA campground RV park.
Yeah, no trailers, but yeah, that's right.
Right.
That's correct. We could qualify for no trailers. Is that kind of, okay?
Right,
Yeah,
just for your RVs, where
that's
they come and
correct.
they
Travel
set up,
trailers,
yeah,
RV,
right.
that's right.
And when we say trailers, we're thinking of 18-wheelers? Is that what you're talking about?
No.
When you say
No,
trailers?
So-
RV, tractor trailer.
Recreational
okay,
vehicles.
all right, gotcha.
You know, travel trailers, some
Right.
like pull-behind trailers.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
that's correct.
All right, a motion has been made with the queue.
Second.
What you
Huh?
gonna say? What you gonna say?
I wasn't gonna say anything other than I was gonna say that the motion I put out there, I will add that to it.
Okay.
Then I'll second that motion.
A motion has been made and properly second with the queue. All those in favor?
Unanimous.
Thank y'all,
very
appreciate
much.
it.
Thank you.
Item number 2, S&S Eagles LLC, requesting to rezone 5 lots on the northeast corner of Mobile Highway and West South Boulevard from B3 to an M1 district.
I'm with SNS Eagles. My name is Oro Swami.
Could you speak up a little bit?
Yeah, I'm with SNS Eagles. My name is Oro Swami. I'm the owner for the company, and we're requesting for the
Your
rezone.
address? Your address?
110 Lake Haven Way, Prattville, Alabama, 36066.
Okay. You want to elaborate on what you want to do?
Yeah, basically, the parcel that you see there, it's zone B3 right now, where the old Peddlers and Motel was. And we're having inquiries from people who do logistic business that they're going to be dropping off trailers and picking up. So it's not actually going to be like any kind of truck parking or anything. It's more like a logistic business. If a trailer leaves or goods leave from Birmingham, they got a mobile, but the driver is just coming up till Montgomery, they drop off that trailer over there, and then the other company or the other drivers that's traveling towards Mobile or New Orleans, they pick it up from there and go. So it's not, I don't know as what people are thinking, but it's not a truck parking or truck wash or anything like that. It's going to be an enclosed section, no people allowed, there's not going to be any trucks parked in there. It's just a drop and pick off point for the 18-wheeler trailer for goods and services. So that's for that, I think we required it to be a M1 industrial. And everything down from the interstate down there is M1. Being a motel before, it was zone B3. And I do own the motel up there. We've developed that motel. We have opened it in 2019. We opened that Clay Seafood Restaurant in the front, and we've opened the closed convenient truck stop next to the Hardy station. And we're trying to develop that area, but given where it is, you know, we need to do something more for traffic to move along there. So that's why we're requesting the zoning.
How tall will your fence be?
Right now, we have a 5-foot fence, but if it's any mandatory required, we can raise it to whatever height is required.
Are there any other questions from members of the commission? Comments?
Are you, you're talking 18-wheelers with the trailers, right?
Yeah, the 18-wheeler is going to come in.
And you're saying that they will come in and they'll download the trailer
Yes,
and leave in the cab?
yes.
That's what you're saying?
Yes, the cab would leave from there, the trailers would be sitting, the next drivers which head down to its destination, they just come hook it up and carry on with their way. So
Yes.
there's not exactly going to be like an 18-wheeler with the cab or the driver sitting in there sleeping or none of that stuff. It's
So-
more of a logistic business, it's just transportation.
So they're not gonna be a cab and a trailer there except unloading?
Right,
They
right.
pull
Just
in-
unhook off the trailer and rehook it back up. So it's just a transit point.
Where does the cab go?
Like if the person is living in Montgomery, but he has a load that he's picked up in Birmingham, but the load actually has to end up in Mobile, they come and drop it off here and they go back home, but the next driver who is driving towards Mobile or New Orleans, they come pick it up and go on their way. So that's what these logistic companies do. And they have like a software system that kind of works to tell where the container is and how the shipping works.
Okay.
The entrance, would that be from the Boulevard or Mobile?
We have 3 accesses to that property. There's two on Southern Boulevard and 2 on Mobile Highway. So all of them are good enough to have access to go in and out.
You know, one of y'all, didn't, and if I ain't mistaken, about 2 years ago, didn't we rezone that property?
No, I think when we were remodeling the motel, there was a gentleman out there who was trying to do like a truck wash and stuff.
Right.
And that was rejected, and we told him to leave the place because we weren't aware at that time that it had to be a M1 place to do the truck wash. But he wasn't there but a month or so, and then he moved to the place where they're building the new QT, and he was doing his truck wash over there till QT bought it out.
Okay, and I mean, and another concern that I do have
Yes.
is and I pass by that place probably 8, 9, 10 times per day.
Okay.
Those entrances and exits is directly on that traffic light. I mean, it is so close to that traffic light that it gonna create a problem. It definitely gonna create a problem right there on that corner.
Generally, when we were remodeling the motel, we had a lot of 18-wheelers come in and out. It's never been a problem.
Well,
We can do in and out different.
Well, and back down, and I understand what you're saying, because back down, closer to Clay Seafood and closer to the motel, yeah, you probably got 50 feet off that traffic light.
Right.
But right here, where you're talking about now, you're talking about maybe 10 feet off that traffic light.
We can use the
At most.
in and out from the Southern Boulevard side and not use the mobile highway access.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, you're gonna have a lot of opposition against this. Well, one of the things is, that is actually the Civil Rights Historical Trail. And for those tractor trailers sitting there,
Right.
you know, we already got one issue that's sitting directly across the street from that. Well, and we've been trying to find out who parking those trucks there like that, because it is a total eyesore. And that's what we're trying to get out of there, you know. And I heard you say you're trying to build this area up. But do you think parking tractor trailers, that's actually building up, or it gonna be more of an eyesore?
It's basically a logistic place. Like you guys approved the QT over there. We already have enough trouble with TA. You approved QT, you're gonna have even more trouble. But this is where no people are, there's no access to anybody. It's in an enclosed area. It's just a drop and pickup, that's all. So that's more trouble what you are created on the Boulevard than this one. So, you know, we already have enough trouble with TA out there, and now with QT being a truck stop, if it was a convenience store, I wouldn't care, because I have the truck stop next to QT, and I don't let anybody park there at night or nothing, just fuel and go.
And I know your place, and actually
Right, so that's all our intention
I
is just.
commended the job that you do right there.
Right, something has to move over there, you know, like I mean, so the whole thing, you got 3 closed motels over there, you got a bunch of homeless people that are breaking into those motels.
Well,
Landlords or whoever owns
it-
them, I
it-
don't know.
And that's another story. There's a couple of those motels.
Yeah, but
that's
it's all,
the city
it's all on the
demo
same
list.
strip, what I mean, so
But
they're all like
what-
on the same strip.
Like I say, what my biggest concern, even the planning department, they don't recommend that.
I mean,
that
so,
is
you know,
just one bad spot for this.
I'm
to
just
do
an
that.
entrepreneur. I'm going to just try to do what comes business-wise over there. If you guys don't approve it, that's fine. I'm not doing the business on my own. It's just we've got multiple inquiries from major logistic companies, which are big companies, you know. And that's a good thing. If they have a transit point right here in Montgomery, so close to the airport, it brings in more business through the town, you know. So it's...
All right, I hear you, but we got some people that's gonna be in opposition that's gonna wanna come up and speak, so.
How many trailers would physically go on that?
it's
On-
about...
In a normal day?
Right, it's about 5.5 acres. I'd say maybe 20, 30 trailers, given the movement. Sometime it might just stay empty if there isn't much movement. So, but maybe holiday season, sometime when a lot of goods need to be shipped out, you might have a little more. So I can't give you an exact count because I'm not exactly doing that business. I'm just a landlord, and and these companies that are trying to get to lease that space, they're major national companies. So it's actually going to spruce up the place and make it better, you know, look-wise or usage-wise. Because it's going to be hard to go on Southern Boulevard and invest any more money. You know, I can tell you so many incidents, how much trouble we're having just keeping those business doors open.
Right.
Okay, I got another question. You said you're not gonna be the owner operator of it, so how are you gonna go about controlling the people that you lease it to?
Yeah, whatever the conditions the planning commission or anybody gives us, we're gonna make sure it's incorporated in the lease and they agree to those terms before we lease the land to them. So that way they're and we already operate the motel over there, so we can keep an eye out for, make sure that nothing, what wasn't agreed is being done over there. And mostly national companies, you're not gonna have that trouble. They just stick to whatever the terms and conditions are agreed upon.
Tanya, I'm not sure who this question is for, you or Mr. Smith. Why do you object to this?
That's Mr. Smith.
Mr. Smith. You can use that one if you like. Okay.
Good afternoon, Planning Commission members, Mr. Chairman, Vice Chairman. Robert Smith, City Planning Director here at the City of Montgomery. Yes, we are opposed to the proposed rezoning request. It's not consistent with our newly adopted, that you all adopted, comprehensive plan and Vision Montgomery 2040. What's proposed in the comprehensive plan is for community commercial, small format commercial, office, multifamily, and civic and institutional. So this does not meet that consistency standpoint with the plan itself. This would be something much larger than that, light industrial, which is not consistent with what the plan is called for.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Are there any other questions from members of the commission? All right. For members of the audience, do you have any comments? Please come forward. If you could maybe have two people speak and they not make the same point, that we would really appreciate it.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. We represent, my name is Classy Thomas. I'm the president for Greater Washington Park Community Association and also for the community development in that area. I also serve on the Civil Rights Trail Foundation that we have formed trying to improve that area. And we strongly object, first of all, because we are on the Civil Rights Trail. And it is, and I don't know how often you travel it, but it is a hot mess. And we have been working diligently trying to clean up that area so it can represent what we have done in the past. Now, I understand trucking, and I have family members that are truckers. They drive 18-wheelers. And the first thing they said to me is that you don't want that. They start off one way, and it ended up, and it's deteriorating as the process goes on. When you think about the trucking environment, it is not community friendly. And in that area, we already having problems. Number one, every now and then, we'll get truckers that bring their trucks down through Greater Washington Park. They didn't lose their way. They come looking for drugs. They come for prostitution. And then he mentioned homeless. Yes, we do have a problem with homeless down in that area. So when you start, it only will add to that problem. I attend church in Greater Washington Park as well. I am a product of Greater Washington Park. We have various programs, children programs. And so we need to be careful what we put in these areas. What are we saying to our children? What are we saying to our future? This is not what we want. We want some community commercial, but this is not what we would like to see in our community. And I know it's saying that it's business and industrial, but that's not what we want.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Elizabeth Carhurst, and I'm a resident of Greater Washington Park. Let me just say that the traffic light that's on the corner of the Southern Boulevard and Mobile Highway, if this is allowed to be placed there on that corner, that's going to be a major problem. We're also concerned because we are a part of the historic trail from Selma, Alabama to Montgomery. That trail is very unique. A lot of people come from all over the world just to come down that trail. There's another thing that I would like to say to you all is that we never saw a sign that mentioned that that area was going to be rezoned. We only found out when Mrs. Ingram came to a community meeting last week and told us. The sign never came up even after that meeting. So there's a problem there, and I'm not saying that the applicant took the sign down, but I'm telling you that the sign was never there. So we are opposing this facility on the corner of Mobile Highway and the Southern Boulevard. And in fact, your 2040 Envision plan for the Southern Boulevard does not entail tractor trailers along that route. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Sir, would you like to?
Tanya, was there no sign?
Yes, sir, we posted signs, and I did go to their community meeting. We post them, we take pictures, we have proof we posted them.
Okay.
What happens after that, we don't know.
Yeah,
The signs was there. I think the guy that cut the grass knocked them down. But they was there. I saw them myself.
Yeah,
you
sometimes
know.
if they're
So they
cutting
was there.
grass, they will wipe them out with no concern of ours.
Sir, do you want to address any issues they have?
No, I'm okay with them. If they are not comfortable with it, there's nothing I can do about it.
Okay.
So it's up to
Okay.
you guys. But like I said, they just need to understand it's a logistic business and it's not what they're thinking as far as trucking business. It's two different things. Logistics is different, trucking business is different. Logistics is there's no people over there, maybe one little office with a person letting them in and out. It's going to be enclosed, security gate, no people in and out. So it's two different business. I'm concerned about the trucking business myself. I don't like it, but I'm not encouraging a trucking business. So, so basically, it's just two different subjects what we're talking about. You know, truck trailers parking and all, I'm dead against to that. I myself don't like it. But this is an enclosed area where trucks are dropped and picked up. There's nothing out there that's happening bad other than, yes, like Mr. Reggie mentioned, if you think it's an eyesore, I can't do anything about it.
Okay.
There was some
Yeah,
concern.
if I may, Ed Fleming with Hodges to speak for it. This would be
Hold on a second. Go ahead, Mr. Cook.
I was just questioning. There's some concern about that traffic light, but I understand from you that you can use this facility without using the entrance right at the traffic light on Mobile Highway and Southern Bypass.
We actually have several entrances.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, all the way back. He owns the property, as you see, all the way back
If
to
you
where
can
it says
use-
Mobile Highway.
Can you avoid using that entrance at all?
Sure. And
Okay.
and this
That's
would
all
be
I'm asking.
similar to like if FedEx comes and would lease the whole thing to drop their trailers off and go. That's the kind of customers that are calling us to have a location where they can drop their trailers and let the drivers move on because there's such a shortage of drivers.
Okay.
And we've been asked to see about having places like this. It's an ideal spot for it because it's already concreted, already fenced, already got light poles. It's an ideal situation. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from members? Comments? Do you all feel you're so far apart that you can't come to a compromise? Okay. All right, got it. All right, a motion is in order.
I move to deny based on safety and also that it's not in line with the 2040 Envision Montgomery Comprehensive Plan.
Second.
A motion has been made. Tanya, did you get the reasons?
Yes, sir.
All right. A motion has been made and the reasons stated and second. All those in favor?
7,
Those opposed?
1.
All right.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Item number 3, Pilgreen and Bostick Engineering, representing Sara Beasley, requesting to rezone one lot on the southwest corner of Perry Hill Road and Elmdale Road from R75M multifamily residential to a B2 commercial district.
Good evening. I am Chris Bostick with Pilgreen and Bostick Engineering, representing Sara Beasley. I did bring a couple of slides. If you could load those for me, please, just to kind of further explain. The first slide, sorry, it's a little hard to read there, but this is the actual, this shows the current as-built survey of both the Elmdale Road lot on the north side, which is the one that we're looking to rezone here, and the interstate court lot on the south that is already zoned to B2, which is also known as Pickwick Antiques. It's our client's intent, if the property can be rezoned, to replat the two lots into one for the expansion of Pickwick Antiques. And it is my understanding that the existing house that's on the north lot is already being used for overflow storage for the building, and they just need more room. This is slide 2. This is the plat that has already been submitted to the City of Montgomery for circulation and comment, and to go before the Planning Commission at the next meeting, assuming that the Planning Commission and City Council agree to approve the rezoning. This will be, pardon me, sorry. This is Beasley plat number 1, and it's in circulation right now. And like I said, it'll be at the next meeting if all of the rezoning is approved. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, are there any questions from members of the
I
commission?
have one. What's the zoning on that house now?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thought, it's R75M
What I
multifamily.
thought. But you say it's being used for storage. Isn't that a violation? It's not zoned for storage.
Well, they're not running a business out of it. They're so.
Having storage part of the business. You know, this came before us a few years ago, and it was denied then. Same situation. But I'm not for it.
Is there a particular reason you're not for it?
It's residential. That whole stretch there from Elmdale down to Harrison and beyond is residential.
I would like to state that we did attempt to have a community meeting. I contacted both Mr. McInnes with District 7 and Mr. Grimes with District 1. Mr. McGinnis did not have a contact for the Lakeview Heights Neighborhood Association and got me in touch with the City of Montgomery Neighborhood Services. They provided me with a contact for both Lakeview Heights Neighborhood Association and the Forest Hills Neighborhood Association to the north. The Lakeview Heights contact was no longer valid, so I contacted the Forest Hills Neighborhood Association contact, and she had no contact and said, to her knowledge, there is no longer a neighborhood association, so we had no way to get hold of the community there. But
Well, actually, the area closest to this location is known as the Perry Hill Association, not the Lakeview Heights. So you were trying to contact the wrong association.
I got those resources. If I was wrong about that, I apologize. I got those resources from the City Neighborhood Association. That's all they had for me.
Well, I'm for it staying residential myself.
Chris,
I can't speak for anybody else.
this is the house right next to the business there. It backs up to the back end of
Yes,
the
sir.
of the
Can
business.
you go back to slide 1 real quick? Yes, sir.
Okay. And so it's nothing more than adding that part. Are they gonna tear down the house, or what are they gonna do?
I don't think they have a development plan yet because they haven't been able to rezone it.
But you've been using it as if it was rezoned.
Well, from my understanding, that no one's living in the house and they've had to store overflow.
Have to put something in there to keep insurance, don't you? You do.
Even if it's a violation?
All right.
Are there any other questions from members of the commission? Are there any questions from members of the audience? Comments? And so do you want to contact the people Mr. Reeves was saying?
I mean, if I contacted the wrong neighborhood and you have a contact for them, I'd be happy to move forward and get hold of them and try to have a community meeting.
You saying you want to postpone?
Hmm?
You
Well,
saying
we
you-
don't want to postpone, but if you think that we contacted the wrong people by contacting Lakeview Heights and Forest Hills, then we can try a different neighborhood association. Which neighborhood association did you say
Perry
was
Hill.
that? Perry Hill? Okay.
You got a name and address for it?
Do you have a contact?
I don't right now.
I mean, neighborhood services should be able to get you that.
Well,
no problem.
they were the ones that gave me the contacts I had.
But did you ask for Perry Hill Association?
No, I told them where it was, and they gave me the two local neighborhood associations.
Do you want to delay it until next month and you take care of that? And then you
Yes.
can come back and say you
I
checked
will-
as far as you can go?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll delay and try to get hold of Perry Hill
Good.
Neighborhood Association.
Just out of
and
curiosity.
maybe get Cruz's phone number and maybe he can help you.
Pardon?
And maybe you can get Cruz's phone number and he can help you with it.
Okay.
Neighborhood services would be the first point of contact.
Before you delay, quick question. How long have you been using this for storage? How long have they been using it for storage?
I do not know. Just in a conversation, I asked
Do you
if
know, you know
anyone
if
was-
any neighbors have complained or any problem?
No, sir.
You
In the
don't know
conversation, sorry, go
or
ahead.
nobody's complained?
There's been no complaints.
Okay.
And
All
I
right.
don't believe anyone called in to the city with a complaint.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll see you next month.
Okay.
Check the date because next month is Thanksgiving and the date's gonna be a little off. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
I got one more. That's why I'm still here.
okay.
Number 4, Pilgreen and Bostick Engineering representing EEM LLC requesting to rezone property on the west side of Brooks Road, north of Wetumpka Highway from R50 Single Family Residential, Flood Hazard, and Ag 2 General Agriculture to a M1 Light Industrial District.
All right. I have a few more slides here for this one as well. If you can put those on, please. All right. Slide 1 shows the property that we are asking to be rezoned to M1 on Brooks Road, not far from the Highway 9 intersection. The adjacent property to the north is already zoned M1 and belongs to EEM LLC and is a trucking company that also provides storage for around 30 trailers for other trucking companies under contract. We are asking for this rezoning to allow the stored trailers from the other companies to be moved to the used property to the south to move them away from the operations of the trucking company. At this time, there are no specific plans as to what improvements will be made to the property. If the property rezoning is approved, the owner is aware that any improvements to the rezoned property will require a full development plan approval by the city of Montgomery. Slide 2, please. This shows the flood map of the area. As you will note, around half of the property is in the floodway, and a good deal more is in the 100-year flood. This means that the back 2/3 of the property is unusable. The Department of Planning comments are mostly not applicable for the following reasons. 2/3 of the property will have to remain undeveloped due to the flood and floodway, providing the potential open space that the Envision Montgomery 2040 Comprehensive Plan creators put on all the land on the outskirts of the study. If you can go to slide 3. This is northeast Montgomery. All of this is open space, minus a couple little spots on the highway according to 2024. Nothing else is supposed to be developed. It's all supposed to be open space. Can you zoom into 4 real quick? This is the property in question. This is the property to the north that they already own and already have their trucking business. And as you can see, it is also zoned for open space. So the city's recommendation based on just the 2040 comprehensive plan doesn't exactly work with that, in my opinion. But in addition, this is the close-up of the property we were discussing. Note that the already developed M1 lot to the north, shown as potential open space, possibly due to the same flood issues, makes this lot only 1/3 developable. It is safe to say that's provided. Sorry, I didn't mean to repeat that. The property backs up and is adjacent to existing residential homes on Sanders Lane and Hayden Drive. That's over to the west, and that was mentioned in the comments as well. As discussed before, the back half of the property is in the floodway, which creates a 12,000-foot natural buffer, which I think everyone can agree is plenty of buffer between those residential homes and the commercial development. To the south of our property, right here, there is currently an R50 and AGR2 lot that has an existing barn on it, and that's all the tax map says is there. Any buffer requirements between M1 and R50 will be met in the development plans when they're submitted to the city. Are there any questions?
Go back to the first slide, please.
Okay.
If you look to the southeast, to the south of that space, and that little house right there. No, to the southeast, over.
Southeast, this side.
Yeah. Over to your left.
You talking about this?
That house. Have you talked to those people about that?
That's a barn, and they have spoken to them, and they do not have an issue with them clearing and storing trailers on there.
Are you sure about that?
Well,
Okay, all right.
Well,
We'll see in a minute. No, we'll see in a minute.
Okay.
Are there any other questions from members of the commission? Are there any questions from members of the audience? Yes, come forward, please come forward.
I'd like to hear from the planning department. Since
Yeah.
Robert made those statements, I'd like to hear why
Before
he-
you talk, Robert, could you tell us your objection? Hold on, sir. Hold on just a second.
All right, here we go again. Robert Smith, City Planning Director here at the City of Montgomery. With this particular proposal, we did object to the proposed rezoning request, largely because it wasn't consistent with the Envision Montgomery 2040 Comprehensive Plan. The majority of the property, as the engineer did say, is in a flood zone. Also, the subject property backs up to and is adjacent to existing residential homes on Sanders Lane and Hayden Drive. And those were our comments.
Robert, maybe I misunderstood. Is that I thought you said that it did not. The city planning didn't go out that far.
Right, and I'm trying to interpret what you said. I think what he said was that they're not going to go that far back. In
Right.
which is that correct?
Right.
Right.
Is that
And
correct?
when I made my comment, I did not know. I assumed that they were going to be using the entire piece of property, so that was a large basis for my comment for sure. Because all I could see was 18-wheeler trucks being stacked up all the way down from the front of the property where it's at the road all the way to the back.
You were.
And then also it is in a flood zone also.
Did you know it was in a flood zone when you objected?
Sir?
Did you know it was in a flood zone when you
Yes.
objected?
Correct. Yes, sir. When I reviewed it, and this is what I do for every proposal, I review and make sure that whether or not they're in a flood zone or not, and have a basis for the comment based on that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Robert, does it make a difference to you in the fact that that the floodplain is further down and not to be built on, it's only going to be built on the upper front? Does that make a difference to you?
Right. Well, and based on what I saw, I mean, the whole thing is, I think he said floodway, and let's go back. I mean, largely that whole thing has something associated with flood on it for the entirety of it, largely, with the exception of the small piece to the front.
Which is what they're talking about using.
Right.
I mean, so if they cut it off where the flood plain starts, would that make any difference to you?
Slightly. I was more concerned with the residents, the units that are on the backside, more so than anything.
That's why I was asking.
Right.
I thought there was a 1,200-foot buffer.
That's what he said, and like I said,
Would that make any difference?
And I said yes, but when they initially submitted the proposal, there was nothing about a buffer in the proposal at all. So I assumed that the whole entire piece of property would be used for truck and trailer parking.
But there are houses right across the street, right?
Right.
Yes. Brooks.
And I guess there are houses
And
on the
if
opposite
those-
side of the road, but those are a bit further away.
Yeah, if those on Sanders made a difference, then why wouldn't the houses across the street make a difference?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Now, you said that the homes that when you made your comments, you said the homes that were on the very back of the property,
Yes.
Sanders
Lane and Hayden Drive.
Right.
Those were the ones that I was the most concerned about.
Okay,
Yes.
so my question is, if those were important at the very back, and there's houses straight across, why were the houses across the street not important at that time?
Why were they not? Largely because they are so far away.
You're talking about the ones across the street are far away?
The ones on the opposite side of 231.
No, I'm talking about, this
I
is
think
across the street on Brooks Road.
He's talking
Okay. So there are homes right there also.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Well,
There's, I think
same
there's three.
thing. I missed those houses. I was more looking at the ones on the
Further
back
up,
side. But
yeah.
if there are houses on the front side,
Okay,
then
all right.
comment stands have a problem with the whole thing.
So your point is that
And I hear people talking behind me, correcting me, so I stand corrected on that.
Yeah.
So your
I'm
point
not above.
is-
I'm not above that at all.
your point is all of them would
Yes.
be important. Okay.
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry about that, y'all.
All right, could I have two, maybe three people? Okay. If you're making wait a minute. If you're making different points,
Pardon me?
or if you're on different sides of it.
What do you mean?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Name and address.
Robert Taylor III, address 7459 Old Bond Road, Montgomery, Alabama, 36117. I'm a little taken aback by the presentation that I just heard. There's no mention made of a neighborhood at all, as if the neighborhood doesn't exist. He made reference to a business that's a little further north. Most of that business is in the county. It's not in the city. I have 69 signed petitions by persons who have a vested interest in the perpetuation and the continuity of a neighborhood, which is more than a neighborhood, it's a community. A community that was founded in 1880 by 14 former slaves that established a church, a school, farming industries. To date, there are still third and fifth generation residents in this neighborhood. Madison Park community has given a lot. We gave for 231 North that divided the neighborhood, but we're still a neighborhood. We are for progress, but we are not for the erosion and deterioration of our community. Residential development is still ongoing in Madison Park. Just recently, we came before the City Council to petition to rezone property for residential purposes. There's still growth. With third and fifth generations still there, we expect other families and others to continue to build in Madison Park. The public school in Madison Park closed in 1973, but history will reflect that it was one of the first 6 Rosenwald schools to come to the state of Alabama at the behest of Booker T. Washington and Julius Rosenwald. It just bothers me that we speak of just property and we don't speak of community. A nonprofit organization reopened on its own Madison Park Elementary School that had been closed for 40 years due to desegregation.
Sir.
Yes.
With all due respect.
I'm gonna get to that.
With all due respect, the only issue we're talking about here is him and rezoning that strip of land down there.
Let me fast forward to that, sir.
Please,
okay.
please.
The scribble of land to you is community to us.
Okay.
That's the vast difference, okay? And sometimes without a background, that's all we talk about, strips of land. Madison Park has 3 historical landmarks awarded by the Alabama Historical Commission. That means it has relevance, it has significance. We expect it to be a tourist attraction. But let's deal specifically with what's on your mind, and that's this strip of land that happens to be in front of 3 residences that have been in Madison Park for almost or better than 70 years. What does it mean to them? There's a barn that he refers to, but that's also precious property that's owned by a family in Madison Park. The person who owns that property is here. He says he's made a reference to that person. Has not.
Speak in the microphone.
Okay,
please.
has not, because she's here. She's here to oppose and protest. So what do we have? We have a traffic light 1,000 feet south, tractor trailers coming in with a short distance to get to where he wants to park trailers. And what is that going to do but wreak havoc on those residents and also provide for potential accidents and the like. But I just want to personalize it a little bit.
Yes.
Okay? It's more than a strip of land, and we need to think in terms of it being a community that will one day be a tourist attraction for Northeast Montgomery.
Thank you, sir.
if you don't mind.
Thank you, sir. You have one more person. Only one.
Okay. Hey, good evening. My name is Keith Rogers, 3130 Brooks Road. Zip code is 36110. And what I want to talk about is the residents across from where they want to put the truck stop at. I'm saying if you go back and look at those pictures that he presented, that road cannot carry those big trucks. I'm saying I can remember back when I was on active duty in the Marine Corps, I used to go running up and down that road whenever me and my wife came home, and I felt safe. There's no way you could bring trucks that size up and down that road. I'm saying either from Lower Wichita Road or from 231 without causing some kind of accident. You're talking about spills. I don't know what they're going to be carrying, contaminated materials or whatever, but you have kids and families dwellings on the other side of that road, and we're not really looking at that. I'm saying he's looking at what's on the back side of it, saying that it's swampland, but what's on the front side, what's right across that road in those houses, that's what we need to be focusing on. And like I said, we don't have any sidewalks out there, so how would we be able to send our kids, grandkids out there to play? He was saying that they talked to the owner of that barn. The owner of the barn is standing right back there. And I know they could have gotten in contact with her because they sent out checks to try to get the people to go ahead and agree to it before they came in front of you. I guess they was trying to backdoor you. They already signed amounts to each to the property. They never talked to them. They just mailed out the checks, hoping that they would agree to it. So, like I said, we really need to look at who we're dealing with. Like they said that they already have that truck stop over there. That truck stop was closed down for years. Does that truck stop have a current license to operate over there? We don't know that. We don't even know, I'm saying, from the address on here, this right here saying that they're out of Florida, I guess. So, like I said, we need to take care of the people in Montgomery, Alabama. That's what I'm concerned about. Not no truck stop, because you're not going to tell me that they can't find some other land, that they don't have to take land that's been in our family nearly 100 years. You trying to tell me that they can't find any other land anywhere on the outskirts of Montgomery where they can park those vehicles? So like I said, we need to look at that right there and look at the homes that's across the street from where they want to put this truck stop, not where he's talking about on the other side of the flood zone. And I've been in this family close to 50 years now. It's never flooded on Brooks Road. So like I said, even though it might be in a flood zone, it's never flooded on Brooks Road that I know since I've been alive, and I'm 60 years old. So that's all I want to say, because like I was in the Marine Corps, they said keep it simple and get out the way. Okay, thank you. One more thing. All right, one more thing. I just want to say it. The same time I used to go running down Brooks Road, the little old ladies on the other end, Ella Brooks, they used to ride up and down that road on tricycles, the little three-wheel bicycles. Okay, with those big trucks coming up and down there, do you really think them little old ladies could do that?
I got it.
Okay, thank you.
Point made. All right, one last, if you don't mind, one last
I live straight
thing.
across the street in that wooded
Your
line.
name and address. Name and address.
3220 Brooks Road,
Your name.
36110, Johnny Sexton.
Okay.
And the problem I've been having is the nighttime traffic. And it's real loud this morning at 5:15 out there honking the horn at each other. And if they grow this, it's going to even get worse. We got two little grandgirls we raised. And they go to school, so sleeping is important. And it very much disturbs our
The
sleep.
in and out, them going in and out, they're like trying all the way from one corner of my trailer to the other corner when they're turning to go out.
Now, business hours, I got no problem in the world with that, but after dark, before daylight, they're steadily going, and I see that being my problem.
At the other place, they store the other truck. There's a gate there. They have to sit there and wait till the gate opens before they can get in. they're blocking traffic. Every morning, every night, they're blocking traffic.
Ma'am, can you talk in the mic?
Ma'am?
Can you talk
Pull
in
the
the
mic
mic?
down, pull the mic down.
They're blocking traffic whenever they're having to sit there and wait for the gate to open.
Right. Okay. Mr. Bostick, step. Now, you've heard these concerns. You've heard the young lady right there just say that when they come out of there, they already shine lights through her house. And the other 3 houses is right in front of the exit from that trucking place, and the lights will be shined right into their house. Now, there are some issues out there. Do you want to discuss them with them and come back some other time, or do you want to vote tonight?
Well, it sounds like there's some things that need to be discussed between them and the owner. I do want to state one thing that I don't know if I made clear. This is an existing business, and part of this existing business is that they do trailer storage for another company on their property. And all they're wanting to do is move that part of the trailer storage business to that south property so that they're not parked in the way of their business. Now, we're not talking about more trips per day. We're not talking about more trailers. We're talking about moving one part of the business out of the way of their main business. Now, we're not talking about starting a trucking company. We're talking about an existing one. Now, all the other issues, I think, definitely need to be worked out, and a discussion needs to be had. And I'm very surprised. I would like to know, you said the person who owns the barn to the south? The barn right to the south there?
I don't know the directions, but I am.
Ma'am, y'all need to talk in the mic, please.
Pull that mic down.
I don't know the directions, but I am the owner of that property. My question is why? Why are you all trying to destroy what we've had for a lifetime? Why do you want to do that? There's plenty of land in Montgomery that you all can put your little truck and stuff on or whatever. You're going to break down the road. You're going to break down the houses and all with those heavy trucks coming through there. Again, my question to you is why?
And my question to you, Mr. Bostick, is do you want to vote tonight, or do you want to talk to these people and try to come to some kind of agreement?
You got one more guy that maybe speak for it.
Do you have somebody? Sir, are you for it? Are you for this? Yes, sir. All right, please take the mic. Please state your name, address.
My name is Nathan Eccles, address 8553 West Hampton Court, 36117. I'm the 3rd generation of the family that's operated that trucking business for approximately the last 55 years. We've been at that location. We've run trucks at the location for half a century.
At what location? You mean on the corner?
The M1, currently M1 designated location.
On the corner?
No.
Oh, yeah.
If you look at the property from the road, there's an invisible line down the middle. The left is zoned agriculture, the right is M1. And right now, for the last half century, we've run our business on that right half. And all we want to do is move some of the trucks that we have parked on the M1 zoned half 50 feet over to the lot the other half of our lot, which is M1. Trucks have been up and down that road from multiple companies. You know, it does not tear up the road. In the past, we had close to 200 trucks. Now we have much less. We care about the community. Neighbor across from us complained once in the past about gravel dust. So we rebuilt the building farther back, closed off that driveway, moved it, and put in a concrete driveway just to attempt to address that issue.
What about the lights in the lady's house?
Any homes that would be within the view of the lights would have been built way after we had already been there. We've been there approximately 55 years.
All right. hold on a second. Do you want to vote tonight?
Yes, we can vote. We want to vote tonight.
But it's his option though. Do you want to vote tonight, or do you want to discuss it with these people and come back next month? Ma'am, go ahead. What do you
I
got to
am
say?
63 years old, and before
Name and address.
I'm Maxine L. Hendricks, and I live at 3130 Brooks Road.
Yeah.
My parents, it was a dirt road back in the days. They were not there. They closed the thing down, and all of a sudden they start, about a couple of months ago, start easing 1 or 2 trucks, and now it just start picking up heavy. We don't even, it used to be Casada Trucking Company when they came up there. We don't know what it is now because of the fact we don't know whether or not it's current license. So how are they operating? And he's standing here saying, we built after them? Come on now. We've been there on Brooks Road. That property is 100 or some years old. Our ancestors left that property. And now they're gonna come in and just take it and act like we're supposed to stand still and give it to them? We don't know what's coming in. It could be oil in those trucks. We gotta live with the water when they go into the soil. Why you can't take it up down? It's so much property up there on the Boulevard. Take them trucks and buy that property and go up there. For trucks are on that highway all the time. Because why are you gonna come and then gonna make up this lie and say that they were there before us?
Okay.
Please tell me what was his address, because we was on the front and the Brooks is on the very end. Where did he fit in at?
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
This property that y'all are talking about, Chris, do the Eccles own that piece of property right now? Is this part of the property that y'all have had for a long time, or is this something you just bought?
We have had, there's 2 strips
Yes.
in the south side. We've owned the strip closest to our existing building for approximately 20 years, and we acquired the strip below that approximately 4 or 5 years ago, I believe.
Okay.
But there will be no change to our existing business.
Right, you're gonna be there and you're gonna have your business that you've got right now.
Right, we'll be doing the same business we've been doing for approximately 55 years. It's just no expansion, nothing different. We don't haul any chemicals. We haul construction aggregates, and it'll just be allowing us to park our equipment a little bit farther away from our building, office building.
That's already still parked on where you are now.
I'm sorry?
That is already parked where you are now.
Right, our equipment.
In other words, the equipment that's there right now.
It is on the M1 section.
Right, and you want to just move it to that next place. So it's already there.
It's already there. Nothing is going to change that should affect the community. It's just moving it approximately 20, 30, 40 feet south.
You know, again, it gets back to what y'all want to do, but at the end of the day, I think those are kind of some things that I know I didn't know, and I'm sure there's some people right here that didn't know. Now, it may or may not make any difference to some people, but being out there 50 years, and how long have y'all had your business out there, this particular business?
The LLC that owns the land.
But you're the owner.
Over 20 years.
All right. Both parts. Both parts
of.
Or just the trucking part.
The trucking company has been in our family since 70. Yeah, we've been on Brooks Road since 73.
Is that your father?
No, when they bought
It's my father.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Ma'am, could you let him come to the mic? Ma'am, in the red.
Sorry.
Mike Eccles, 8553 West Hampton Court.
Okay.
My dad bought the property in '72. developed it and moved in 73.
Okay.
And then he passed away about 10 years ago, and we took over the property, and we're just trying to utilize what we already have. That's all we're doing.
Okay.
But the business you have right now, Mr. Eccles, that own that piece of property, on the M1 piece of property, what was on it when your dad died? Was that business there then?
When he got in ill health, it went out of business, and we started trying to refurbish the property, redid the building, trying to make it, worthwhile. We keep it up, keep it real nice for the neighborhood, but we're just trying to build something for us and our children.
But the business itself, on that piece of property that's zoned M1, how long has that been there? The business on the M1, where y'all are right now doing business?
It's been there since 73.
Okay, so that goes back to your...
Mr. President.
But it was closed
That's
for
50.
Mr. President, we either gonna vote or they're
That's
gonna
50
postpone.
years ago, right? Okay.
Mr. Bostick. Mr. Bostick.
The
Excuse
building's
me,
been there
excuse
since-
me, excuse me. Mr.
Yeah.
Bostick, do you want to vote tonight or not?
They're the owners. So
But he represents them. Do you want a chance to meet, basically what I'm asking is, do you want a chance to meet with these neighbors and explain everything to them to try to come to a meeting of the minds? Yes or no?
Some of them we didn't get to talk to. We walked around and knocked on doors.
Okay.
And
I think the problem is there's only a few houses around where we are, and I think there are a lot of residents on the other side of the flood zone and in different areas that it wouldn't impact, in our opinion.
Can you call for a motion?
So
Mr.
do you want to
President?
vote or not? Could you help me out here? Do you want to vote or not? Do you want a vote or not? Wait a minute. Yes, ma'am. Right.
Let's delay it till the next meeting and try to see if we can work something out.
Could you please get those people phone numbers so that, you will have contacted them, you will have had a meeting, and you will have tried. Okay,
Y'all can go
okay,
out in the lobby and do that.
okay, you guys go back in the lobby, you guys exchange phone numbers and all that stuff, and then get a date for the meeting. Please, do it for me. Do it for me. Help me out. All right, Robert, we're all yours.
We need to continue the meeting, if y'all can move out in the lobby.
I'll let them get out,
Okay.
make their way out.
Please have good news for us, Robert. Please have good news for us, right?
Sir?
Please have good news.
Oh, good news? Well, I mean, I guess the good news is we're trying to update a 60-year-old zoning ordinance, so modernize it, make things a lot better than what they are. As you all know, I'm Robert Smith. I'm City Planning Director here at the City of Montgomery, and the reason that we are before you tonight, this evening, I'm looking outside, still kind of evening, not quite night yet, is as you all recall, the last time we were before you with this subject, we presented to you the assessment of the zoning ordinance update. And it's been a while ago, but just a little background on that just one more time, because I know we've got general public watching. The city prepared a comprehensive plan and adopted it in July of 2020. One of the many actions in the comprehensive plan as an implementation action was to update the city's zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations. Both the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan are really companion documents. They go together, and they both were done about the same time in 1963. But because the plan was so outdated, we decided to focus on getting the plan done first, and the next step would be to update the zoning ordinance right after that. So that's what we started to do back in April of 2022 last year. We engaged a consulting firm by the name of Clarion and Associates to help us with this effort. They focus on doing code updates, zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations updates for cities and counties all around the country. And so this particular update is an 18 to 24 month process, and based on the code assessment, the zoning ordinance assessment, which is what this particular document is right here that we're operating off of for all of the decisions that are being made, has been assessed. And based on the assessment and many comments from staffers internal to the city, a full draft of module number 1 has been prepared, and it's been published, and there is a public draft of that. What's largely enclosed in the public draft are the general provisions, the administration, the zoning districts, the use regulations, and the definitions and rules of construction, interpretation, and measurement. Over the last largely 2 days, ending with today, we've had about 7 or 8, really about 8 meetings right now where we've engaged the public. We've had some pretty good participation where we've done the exact same presentation that we're doing to you, we've done to general public interest. And some of the people that we've engaged have been just regular lay citizens, or they've been realtors, development interests, people that are typical users of the zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations. And so we're coming to an end with the first part of the public engagement process, and we needed to give you all an update on where we are. And so we are largely halfway through the full update. This is being done in 2 modules. So this is, again, module number 1, and the second module will come at a later date. And once we go through the public participation process again with that second module, we will bring it all back together in one document and eventually bring it to you for consideration for adoption. So this is not anything that we're looking to get you to vote on tonight. Number one, because I want to make that clear, because we've heard from different people that Planning Commission is trying to vote on the zoning ordinance tonight. So for everybody that's watching on the public access TV on Charter and WOW, we're not trying to get the Planning Commission to vote on anything tonight. So that will come at a later date. This is just an update in the process based on the assessment of the existing zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations, what has been drafted so far to update and modernize the zoning ordinance, and also deal with some things that we know are real issues out there on the land, because this is the document that every land developer in town, every architect and engineer and land surveyor and realtor and developer and broker, this is what they will use as a rules guide for how they go about developing land in the city of Montgomery. So they'll have to comply with these standards. which are largely managed by the Land Use Division staff at the City of Montgomery. So I'm going to turn it over right now to Clarion Associates. Again, they are our consulting firm that's handling the update of the zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations, and they're going to take you through a bit of a presentation to give you an update on what they have done for us.
One question.
Yes, sir.
Are you asking us to just look and ask questions, or could we give input?
You absolutely can do all of the above.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Roger that.
And this doesn't have to be the last part of your comment process. You may have something that you think about after the fact that you would like to comment on.
Gotcha.
If something may come up that you may not think of this evening. So, yes, sir. Still open.
Okay.
All right. Now I'll turn it over to Jeff Green, who's one of the associates with Jeff Green and David Henning. They both are land use planners, comprehensive planners, attorneys, and engineers. And again, they're the ones that are helping us to do this update. So I turn it over to Jeff and David.
Thank you, Robert. Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Commission, I'm very excited to be here. We were here, I can't remember if it was once or twice, but there may be some new members of the Planning Commission. So those of you who were here before, it's good to see you again, and hello to the new members. Again, I'm Jeff Green. I'm a senior associate with Clarion Associates. We are a mid-sized planning consulting firm. We have offices in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, which is where David and I are based, as well as Denver, Colorado. About half of our practice is working with communities to help them comprehensively update their development codes. Clarion has been around for 30 years, and over that time we have had successful adoption of more than 180 comprehensive rewrites to development codes. So we're very familiar with this. We understand the process. We are currently working on development codes throughout the Southeast. We are actually near the end of projects to completely update development codes in Tuscaloosa and Decatur, Georgia. Decatur, Alabama, up in the Northwest. So we're excited to be here. And I just wanted to echo one thing that Robert mentioned. We definitely want your input, both tonight and after the fact, after you have a chance to dig into this document. So we look forward to hearing your comments. Of all the people in the city who are not members of the planning staff, you all have to deal with the zoning ordinance more than anyone else. So I think your input would be especially valuable. David and I were sitting here today listening as you worked through various issues. So we would love to hear your input about ways that this proposed draft ordinance accomplishes the goals that you want to accomplish and ways that it could be better. Give me just a second. Oh, there we go. Great. So I'm going to start with a little bit of project status and background to show you how we got to this point. And then I'll go through Module 1 of the new zoning ordinance. So again, as part of the project, we are drafting a new zoning ordinance and new subdivision regulations in a two-stage process. We have Module 1, which includes a new set of zoning districts, a new organization of the document, use regulations, and new development review procedures.
Do you want us to wait until the end, ask questions? Or
it's up to you, Mr. Chair. Whatever you think is best.
Okay. All right.
Updated use regulations as well as updated definitions. We've gone through, one of the goals of this project is to make a much less ambiguous and easier to understand document. And so we think updated definitions are a key step in that process. That's the bulk of the presentation, and at the very end I'll talk about the next steps and when we will be back before the Planning Commission to get your input again. So this is the work program and schedule. This is the same diagram that we showed you in our initial meeting. We were out here last summer, summer of 2022, for a project initiation. As part of that, we reviewed your existing zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations. We closely reviewed the Envision Montgomery 2040 plan. We spoke with members of Planning Commission. We spoke with elected officials, the mayor, members of the public to get their input about how well the current zoning ordinance is working, its shortcomings, and ways that the zoning ordinance does not meet the goals that are set forth in the community's new comprehensive plan. We took all of that information and developed a code assessment. And the code assessment is an important document in the process. That is our evaluation of your current zoning ordinance, where we look at the zoning ordinance and we see if it is meeting the needs of the city and whether it's consistent with the policies in the comprehensive plan. And we also identified areas where it falls short. Areas where it falls short, we provided recommendations for a new zoning ordinance that would better address the city's goals as expressed by the folks we spoke with and in the comprehensive plan. The code assessment included an annotated outline. The purpose of the annotated outline was to set forth in plain English how the new zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations would be structured if the city adopted our recommendations. So we had sort of further meetings about that, and at the end of that, we made some changes based on feedback we received. But at that point, we were ready to start drafting new zoning and subdivision regulations that hopefully better meet the city's needs in the current regulations. So we're now in task 3. We're drafting those updated regulations in 2 installments. Just a little refresher, these are the key themes from the assessment. First was to create more user-friendly regulations. The second was to implement some of the key goals from the comprehensive plan. A couple of the goals are to help spur redevelopment, commercial redevelopment within some of the areas of the city that have been vacant for some time, and also to provide new housing opportunities to accommodate folks in all stages of life and at all incomes. Theme 3 from the assessment was to update and modernize the zone districts and use regulations. And I'll get into that in some detail a bit later on. Finally, theme 4 is to modernize the development standards. Those are the regulations that determine how land can be developed. So the amount of parking that's required to be provided, exterior lighting standards, the amount of landscaping that's required to be provided. You won't see anything about theme 4 in this presentation today. That's going to be drafted as part of the second module of this project. So again, we are doing this project in 2 modules or installments. And so we're here before you today, and module 1 that's available on the city's website includes the new zone districts and use regulations, which really go together. That's why we draft them at the same time. It includes the administrative procedures. So what Planning Commission does every month, processing development applications, whether they're for rezonings or other applications that come before the Planning Commission. And finally, we also include some general provisions. These are sort of general provisions that apply. Every zoning ordinance has them, and they are necessary. So again, this is the table of contents of the new zoning ordinance. Today we are here to present Module 1, which includes those first 4 chapters, those first 4 articles, as well as Article 8, Definitions and Rules of Construction, Interpretation, and Measurement. Articles 5, 6, and 7 will be delivered as part of Module 2. And I just want to make clear, the city has 2 development codes. There's the traditional zoning ordinance, and then there's the newer SMART code that's applied downtown and in a couple other parts of the city. We're not touching the SMART code. This is just an update of the city's 1963 zoning ordinance, but we will include a copy of the SMART code at the end of the document to make it, so folks understand that there are 2 different development codes and everything's all in one place. A couple of important tips about the new document. First, there's a table of contents at the beginning, and this provides a nice roadmap, an overview of what's in the document. If you are reviewing this, the electronic PDF that you can download from the website, you can actually click on any of the pages in the table of contents and it'll take you right to that page. In addition, there's a lot of cross-references within the document, and if you click on any of those cross-references, it'll take you to that section of the document. The second part is that there's a lot of changes from the current ordinance. Visually, the new zoning ordinance is very different from your current zoning ordinance. But in a lot of cases, we heard from the community that the actual substantive standards that are in there work pretty well. So we think it's important to identify sections of the new zoning ordinance that are really the same as the current zoning ordinance, and parts of the new zoning ordinance that are new, and why they're new and why we made those changes. So you'll see there are extensive footnotes in this document on the bottom of just about every page that identify whether a particular regulation is new or whether it is carried forward from your current zoning ordinance. If it's carried forward from the current zoning ordinance, we'll identify where it came from. We'll identify if we made any changes. And if it's new, we will typically identify whether it comes from a recommendation in the assessment, some other best practice, or if there's some other reason that we made a change. So the other thing to note is that these footnotes are to help people as they review the document. They will not actually be in the final adopted zoning ordinance. So these will go away once the new zoning ordinance is adopted. So we're going to head into the next section. We're going to start with the administration section, and I'm going to turn this over to my colleague, David Henning, to take you through this.
Thank you all. Again, that's David Henning, and I thank the chair for having us here today. It's my pleasure to speak to you all about the administration article. This is the article that establishes review procedures and approval procedures for all development. Essentially, anyone who wants to do something using the zoning ordinance comes to this article to see what the procedures are. There's really a guiding light behind the drafting of this article, and that's to ensure that the procedures are, ensure transparency and clarity, because that's how you build and maintain trust in the community so that people know who's making decisions and what the decisions are based on. There are some key tools within this article that are new and that are graphic and that are helpful in someone coming new to the code or who has been a part of the development process for a long time and wants to know how things work and see it summarized that they can use to better understand the systems. One of those is the summary table, and it's the first section of this article. And you see an excerpt of it on the screen in the top right for those following along. The table itself goes on for about another 10 or so lines with all the various potential approvals, everything from text amendments to individual smaller specific permits that are approved by staff. And someone who's coming to this table can see the type of thing they're trying to do and follow along it to see what in a summary form, where they'll have to go to get to the end of the process. And so for an example, particularly relevant to the Planning Commission here, let's look at an official zoning map amendment, someone who's requesting a change or a rezoning. There is a staff report that's coordinated by the Land Use Control Administrator. There is a recommendation provided by the Planning Commission at a public hearing like the one we're at right now. And then there's ultimately a discretionary decision at another public hearing by the City Council. That same kind of summary information is available for all the different procedures. Each procedure also contains a flow chart. In general, all the procedures have at their backbone the same basic steps to provide more clarity for how the procedures are done. But there are minor differences in each one, some of them based on state law or on best practices. And the example that's on your screen at the bottom there is the summary flow chart for special exception procedures. This precedes the text actually describing the content of that procedure. And this flow chart shows the modifications to that overall general procedure general template for all procedures. In this example, the pre-application conference, someone coming before the planning department or community development department to see what they'll have to do to go through the process is optional, and so it's called out as optional. And in this process, there is no separate advisory board. In this case, a special exception goes to the Board of Adjustment for approval and review. And so that section on an advisory body is also listed as not applicable, so someone knows that that's not a part of the procedure. The other important part in establishing clarity and consistency is that every one of the procedures in this document has clear decision-making standards for whoever is making the decision. In the case of discretionary decisions, there are guidelines for the elected officials. In the case of decisions made by staff, they are the binding standards that staff will be held to use. In many, or even most cases, these standards are standards that were already in use or that are best practices. By actually writing them down and recording them here, you're making it more transparent for everyone who comes into the process. So, for example, with this section on decision-making standards for the development plan, just taking it as one example, it includes, just focusing on number 3, an explicit requirement that it follows the subdivision regulations. And those kind of similar, some of them are basic, requirements that you're following the use regulations, that you're following the subdivision regulations, that you're following the requirements of the zone districts and the other articles. Those are the kinds of things that we're talking about as far as standards that need to clearly be met. There have been more changes that I want to highlight in the relief and interpretation procedures. These are procedures related, especially to people who, or applicants who may not see exactly what they're looking for in the base guidelines or the base regulations. One of those is a new administrative adjustment procedure that allows, in very limited cases, for staff to approve a minor adjustment to specific development standards. The entirety of the kinds of standards that can be adjusted this way are listed in the table that you see above you. In all cases, we're talking about deviations that may be between 5 and 10% to things such as height, lot width, or lot area. The kinds of instances where you may see an administrative adjustment pursued are in cases in which there may be a particularly challenging development site, in cases where there's something that's being sought specifically in line with the description of the purpose of the zoning district, or where you may be trying to protect live existing trees on a site that otherwise might be in the way of some of the dimensional standards. And so by having this separate administrative adjustment for these smaller instances, it saves them from being a part and kind of swamping the variance procedure, which is what's used for where there's a true hardship on a site, and it allows that to be continue to be limited to instances of true hardship. There's also a new interpretation procedure, or at least a newly formally written down interpretation procedure. Your staff has already been kind of diligently keeping track when a challenging new use or some other new thing that hasn't been considered related to the text of the ordinance as it exists now comes before them so that they can refer to it. And this formalizes that process so that if there is some kind of question, there's a formal recording of what their interpretation is so it can be used the next time the same issue arises or the next time there's tweaks made to the text of the code. In addition to that, it provides a hook, like all administrative decisions. If the applicant wants to appeal it, it's specifically there as the thing to be appealed. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Jeff to discuss the zone districts of this document.
Thanks, David. So we have made 2 types of changes to the lineup of zone districts in your current code. First, we have reorganized the way the regulations are presented. The goal there is to make them more user-friendly and easier for code users. So talking not only about developers and those institutional landowners, but also residents to understand how land can be used in a particular zoning district. And we've done that in a couple of ways, which I'll get to in just a moment. We have a new naming system, which is a little more consistent than your current naming system. And we've also done significant consolidation of the zone districts, particularly on the residential side. And we have also added some new zone districts, largely on the business side. So on the right, you can see the whole list of the 10 sections within the new Module 1 of the zoning ordinance and how they're set out. First, let me talk to you about how we're trying to make this a little more user-friendly. So this is one of the zone districts in the new code, and you can see that there is a new layout that's included. So every zone district basically follows this two-page layout. There are some zone districts that have additional standards that apply that will go down here and perhaps onto additional pages, but the first 2 pages more or less look like this. So at the top, you have the purpose statement. This establishes the name of the district, the general purpose of the district, what types of uses are intended, and where it's supposed to be placed. For some of the business districts, we actually call out particular future land use map categories from the comprehensive plan. Under that, we have a reference to Article 4, use regulations. In the current zoning ordinance, you have groups of uses listed beneath each zoning district table. One issue, which I'll talk about later when I talk about the use regulations, is that you have all these different lists of uses. The naming is not consistent, and it's just not entirely clear whether a use that's allowed in one district is allowed in another district. So we've consolidated all of the uses into this Article 4, which I'll talk about after we get through the zone districts. Beyond that, we have the density and dimensional standards. And so those are in table form like they are today. We try to make use of colors and creatively designed tables to make them a little easier to understand. And you'll also note these letters here. They're a little bit hard to read on the screen, but these are keyed to the dimensional drawing over here. The purpose of this dimensional drawing is to illustrate how the dimensional standards apply. So you can see here, the letter C establishes the front setback, and you can see a line measuring the front setback here. A establishes the minimum lot width, and you can see it measured here. The building that is shown in each of the dimensional drawings is intended to reflect the type of development that's allowed in that district, given not only these dimensional standards, but also the uses that are allowed in that district. So I think that's one of the key ways that we've tried to make this new zoning ordinance easier to use. Finally, each zoning district has a reference to the development standards that apply. So again, this is a reference to the development standards. The actual standards themselves will be delivered as part of Module 2, but you can see those references there. And in the final version of the code, you can click on those links and it'll take you right to those standards. It'll take you right to the standards today, but there's nothing there. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about the changes. I'm going to go through each section, go through each group of districts. Because we want this presentation to serve as a reference going forward, there's a lot of slides which include tables which identify each change from the current district lineup to the new district lineup. But at the end of each section, I have sort of a summary slide that hits the key points. So we may go through these a little bit quickly, but if there's anything you want me to go back to, please just let me know. So Section 3.1 establishes all of the different districts and establishes the general requirement that all development in the city needs to comply with the zone district standards. So this is the sort of crosswalk between your current ordinance and your updated zoning ordinance. A couple of things I want to point out. We have used a new naming system. We've tried to be a little more consistent among all the different uses. And one change that we have made with the residential districts, first of all, they're each named. But secondly, the current naming scheme uses R and then a number which represents the width in feet of the lot at the frontage of the property. We have changed that to using a number that represents in thousands of square feet the minimum lot size for a single-family dwelling in that district. One thing to note is that the name has changed, but the standards really haven't. So R125, residential very low density, is being proposed to become RSF 20, residential single-family 20. The minimum lot width in this district will continue to be 125 feet. and the 20,000 square feet minimum lot area is consistent with what's in R125. So we've done a decent amount of consolidation of residential districts in this draft. One thing that we've tried to do, we want to make sure that if there's development in these districts that conforms to the current zoning ordinance, it meets all of the standards, we want to make sure that that development continues to conform to the new zoning ordinance. So we have consolidated several residential districts that have similar but not identical standards. So in those cases, we have carried forward the standards that make sure that as much property as possible is conforming. So for example, R100, the minimum lot width is 100 feet. R85, the minimum lot width is 85 feet. So there may be perfectly legal lots in R85 that are 90 feet wide or 95 feet wide. When we consolidated these districts into RSF 12, we set the minimum lot width at 85 feet. If we'd set it at 100 feet, then all of those properties in R85 that were perfectly legal under the current zoning ordinance would become non-conforming. And they could continue in operation, but it makes it difficult to make any sort of changes to the property. So that's our general guideline, was to follow the dimensional standard that's going to be consistent with the existing districts. As you read through the zone districts, you'll note there are footnotes which identify any changes to the existing dimensional standards. And we also identify, for example, in RSF 12, we've generally carried forward the R85 standards, but we identify what the R100 standards were in footnotes. I'm going to go through these just a little bit quickly. I have a slide at the end that summarizes pretty well. We consolidate the R60 districts and R50 into RSF 6. We consolidate those 4 districts listed there into the residential mixed district, and I'll go into that in a little more detail in just a moment. And then finally, R60M and R60A become the residential multifamily district. We carry forward the 2 mobile home districts. We give them different names. And you'll note that we have proposed to delete the townhouse districts and the patio garden home districts. Those are uses that will continue to be allowed in the city. But best practice these days is to allow different types of housing in more general residential zoning districts. And so when we get to the next slide, you'll see that townhouses and patio garden homes continue to be allowed in the city. So again, the agricultural districts, there's actually,
when you say the townhouses are continued to be allowed, are you saying those that are there can continue to be, but there can't be any more built there?
No, there can be more built there. So there won't be a townhouse district. The townhouses that are in the townhouse district will be rezoned to one of the residential zoning districts that allow townhouses.
Oh.
And then there can be new townhouses and patio garden homes built in those districts.
Okay.
It may help to look at the next slide.
All right.
So you can see R100 and R85 become RSF 12, single-family homes, same with RSF 8.4. The R60S, R60D, and R50 districts will be combined to RSF 6. That'll be a combined district that allows single-family homes, 2-family duplexes, patio garden homes, and townhouses. One of the policies in Envision Montgomery 2040 is to provide additional opportunities for additional housing options in the city. I'm sure you all are aware that nationwide there's a serious housing crisis, both just there being enough housing and also there being enough affordable housing. These zoning changes won't, change that immediately, but over time it provides opportunities for different types of housing that can accommodate people at different parts of life, whether they're just graduating from school and starting out on their own, or whether they're empty nesters who are trying to downsize from a single-family home to something that's a little bit smaller and easier to care for. Similarly, for those 4 districts that are becoming the RME 8.4 will allow duplexes, patio garden homes, and townhomes, along with sort of moderate density types of housing. And then we have the R60M and R60A, which would become the RMF district, which allows a wide range of housing options. So so these are sort of the key changes to the residential districts. And this might be a good opportunity if you have any questions, or we can wait till later on.
Go ahead.
Okay. Talk briefly about the institutional districts. You have one. We're proposing to add 3 more. There's a new parks and open space district, institutional district intended for those uses. A new institutional university district to support the colleges and universities within the city. And then an institutional military district. The Maxwell Air Force Base as a military base is not subject to the zoning ordinance. So the purpose for that district is just to have an indication on the map that this is a military base and that the zoning ordinance regulations do not apply. One of the key goals that we discussed in the assessment was providing commercial and business opportunities throughout the city at different scales. A Best Buy or a Walmart is appropriate in some locations, but not all locations. So we have proposed adding 4 new business districts: commercial neighborhood, commercial community, commercial regional, commercial corridor. I have a slide which goes into a little more detail, which I'll get to, but I just want to go through the overall changes. And we're carrying forward B2 and B3, but with different names that fit into the new naming setup. The B1A and B1B districts, those we assume were applied in downtown Montgomery before the smart code. So B1B allows the most intense development within the city. These districts are applied sort of at scattered locations throughout the city where it's really not appropriate for that type of development. And so we've proposed to delete those and rezone those lands to other more appropriate business districts. The 2 office districts that are currently used will be carried forward. We're proposing to get rid of the office complex 0 lot line district. It's either not used or used only on 1 or 2 parcels. Utilities will be permitted in other zoning districts, so we've proposed to delete that district. And waterfront recreation is applied to 2 parcels near the waterfront, which are undeveloped, and we think that other districts can better serve the development potential for those sites. So this is the slide that sort of summarizes all of these changes. And so we do have those 4 new districts, and the goal is to support commercial development in many different contexts. So you have your commercial neighborhood, which supports limited neighborhood serving commercial uses. So there's a limited set of uses that are allowed there, and there's also other district standards that ensure that it's compatible with the neighborhood. Limits on parking location, limits on the size of the building, and limits on the height of the building. So that's a type of zoning district that would be appropriate sort of at the outskirts of a neighborhood. Commercial community would allow a broader range of commercial uses, slightly more intensity, as well as office space. And the goal is that it not be a commercial use that is, regional, that's attracting people from all around the region, but that it predominantly supports folks who live in the area. We have the new commercial regional district that supports moderate to high density development. And the commercial corridor is kind of a special district. We know there's a lot of commercial land within the city that's vacant, that, used to be contain uses, but now it's waiting for redevelopment. So commercial corridor is a district. It has minimal dimensional standards, minimal setbacks, allows a good deal of height. It does include some form and design standards. But the goal of the commercial corridor district is to help the city as it works to revitalize these commercial corridors. To be clear, this is not going to be the solution. Having the commercial corridor district is not going to solve those issues. Our goal is to make sure that the zoning ordinance does not get in the way of opportunities by private developers working in conjunction with the city to revitalize some of these areas. So that's, yes?
I have a question. For the B2 individual stores as CG, but wouldn't CG also encompass some of the things that's like CC and maybe CN and all of that? Wouldn't that come under CG?
So what we've tried to do with the different districts is each has different dimensional requirements, each has a different set of uses that are allowed, so that, you know, each district is appropriate for different locations. And one thing I also want to point out as part of this discussion, you know, B2 is on the map, will continue to be on the map with a new name. B3 is on the zoning map, will continue to be on the map. All these 4 new districts, when this zoning ordinance is adopted, won't actually be applied. What they are tools in the toolbox for the city as folks come in with new development ideas to apply in particular areas that would support the type of development that is appropriate within each district.
Okay. And I guess, okay, for example, B2, a service station could be built on the B2.
Yes.
But that would not be, CC would not allow that. But in some of the other cases, CC would be including B2.
So I believe, and I'd have to look at the use table, but I believe CN does not allow service stations. CC, it might be a special exception, so that it needs to go to the Board of Adjustment to make sure that the proposed site is compatible with that use.
But CG would include a service station.
Yes. And the purpose statement, and I'd have to look, if it allows service stations today, it will allow them in the future. The goal is to provide different districts that can be applied in different parts of the city. One of the things we didn't want to do was make a lot of changes to B2 and B3 that would make existing development non-conforming. And so that was our goal with the residential districts, with the dimensional standards, but that's also our goal throughout with the office districts and the business districts.
Okay.
The industrial districts, no changes except for the name. That industrial park district, it's either not used or only used on one site, and so we've proposed deleting it. That just helps streamline the zoning ordinance. There's an airport hazards areas section of the zoning ordinance. We've carried forward those standards as the airport hazard overlay, so that will be on the map as an area where those airport hazard overlay standards apply. We're not proposing any changes to those standards. Changes to the planned development district, I'm going to get to that in just a couple of slides, but we are proposing 2 new planned development districts. And so just to recap, industrial districts, no changes. Keep in the qualified districts that you have today in that process. Section 3.8 references the smart code districts. We think it's useful to have a clear reference to the fact that there is a separate set of development regulations, and that if you're in one of those development districts, then look at the smart code, those regulations apply. And then section 3.10 is for the overlay district, for the airport hazard area. So the new planned development district, that replaces the planned unit development districts. The goal of the new PD is, and if you take a look at the standards and the requirements, is to support unique development that's higher quality than the city would typically get under the base districts in the ordinance. The goal is really not to get just minor tweaks from what you could do in a zone district, in a base zone district, but to require something that's much higher quality. And we've written in standards to hopefully require that. So again, this is, it's a discretionary decision. You all make a recommendation, and the city council approves it. But we've written it in such a way that hopefully the planned development is used to provide really high quality development that is something the city can be proud of. 2 of the key elements of a planned development district are a planned development plan and agreement. It basically sets forth all of the elements of the planned development project. The uses that are allowed, any changes from the development regulations, that apply in that planned development district, any phasing, if the project's going to be phased, what that looks like, what that schedule looks like, as well as, and every planned development is different. Some may have a more detailed set of uses and where they're going to be located and precise dates. Some might be more general, but the planned development district regulations are flexible to accommodate different types of approvals by the City Council. We're proposing 2 planned development districts. One is a general district that allows for, sort of any type of planned development. And there's also one that's a planned development, traditional neighborhood development. The goal of that district is support development in a traditional neighborhood pattern with a mix of housing types in a walkable street grid with a civic space sort of at the focus point, and perhaps some commercial or other civic uses. The reason we put that in there is it establishes these other requirements. A developer could come in for a general PD and claim that it's a traditional neighborhood development. But if they, you really have to think, if they can't meet the basic standards in the PD, T, and D district, it may not actually be a traditional neighborhood development. So those were the zone districts. And I don't know if this is a good opportunity to take some questions before we move on to the use regulations. I'll continue on.
Go ahead.
So we've made some significant changes to the way uses are set out in the document. In the current zoning ordinance, uses are listed below each zoning district. They're grouped together by letters, and then the table, the groups of uses are identified as permitted, permitted on appeal, or essentially prohibited. We have moved all of the uses into Article 4 use regulations, and there's a couple of reasons for this. First of all, when you have separate lists of uses, you have a lot of redundancy and duplication, and that runs the risk over time of having inconsistencies in your development code, especially if you're keeping it up to date and amending it regularly. Secondly, by having those groups of uses, it is not always clear, because different districts allow different groups of uses. It's not always clear exactly what uses are allowed in each district and whether a use allowed in one district is allowed in another district. So we have taken all the use regulations and consolidated them all into this Article 4. All of the principal uses, all of the uses and structures that are accessory to a principal use, and we've also added in temporary uses and structures. We've also gone through and modernized all of the use definitions and all of the use standards. So let me just sort of take you on a little tour of what that looks like. So Section 4.1 is very general organization of the article. Section 4.2 establishes all the principal uses. These uses are organized differently than in your current zoning ordinance. We have a 3-tier categorization system. And the goal of this is to group together similar uses, which makes it easier when an applicant is coming in with a use that's not quite identical to a use that's listed in the ordinance. It makes it easier for the Land Use Controls Administrator to look at the use and see if it's similar enough to a listed use that it should be permitted with similar standards. And again, every use is defined in Article 8. So let me show you how this works. So this is a use in Article 4. We have a commercial classification. We have a food and beverage services uses category, and this is defined. And we have a bar or tavern. If you go over to Article 8, there's a definition of a bar or tavern. And I believe this is very much based on your current definition, with perhaps a little bit of cleanup. So this is what the consolidated principal use table looks like. You've got your use classification, so you've got your commercial uses, that's your top level. There's also a residential classification, a civic and institutional classification, and an industrial classification. Underneath that, you have your use categories. So you've got your 4 animal care uses here, and you've got your 4 food and beverage services uses. And these are uses that have similar impacts or similar characteristics. And so that's why they're grouped together. If you look across the top, you can see a list of all of the zoning districts. And so if you look down one zoning district and then look across from a use, you can see in the cell whether the use is prohibited or not, permitted or not. So again, you have permissions in each zone district, and the next slide will go into that in a little more detail. A lot of the uses in the code have special standards that apply. And so if you look at this last column over here, use-specific standards, if there's a reference in there, that's a reference to the section in the code where there's a use-specific standard. And so if you own land and you want to operate one of these uses, you need to look at these use-specific standards because you need to comply with them. So let's take a look at this example. So bar or tavern, you can see the P indicates the zone districts where the use is allowed by right. The S identifies those districts where the use is allowed, but only after the Board of Adjustment issues a special exception. And you can see that this is applied to the commercial neighborhood and commercial community districts. Now, those are districts where it might be reasonable to have a bar or a tavern, depending on the properties that are nearby. But it's probably not an area where you want to allow a bar or tavern to open by right without taking into effect the impacts that it might have on neighbors. And so will go to the Board of Adjustment for a special exception. The Board of Adjustment has standards that it needs to use to determine whether or not the use is appropriate in that location. And the Board of Adjustment is also allowed to apply additional conditions. So for example, a bar or tavern is allowed, but it has to end by a certain time in the time of the evening. And A means that if an applicant is putting together a plan development, they can include that as an allowed use. That does not mean that a bar or tavern would be allowed in any plan development. But if they want to add that as a use in the PD plan that's required and that City Council approves, that's one of the uses they can apply. As I showed on the last slide, the definitions in section 8.3, and then when you click on this link here, you go to section 4.2.4E1, you get to the use-specific standard for a bar or tavern. And if you read this footnote, you'll see this is a standard that applies in the current zoning ordinance as well.
One question, if a bar or tavern is in a blank, has a blank residential, can special exception be?
No, if it's blank, that means it's prohibited. So,
period, you can't ask for a special exception.
Right. The only way you could get a bar or tavern in land that's zoned residential is if you rezone it to one of the districts that allows that use. Thank you, I forgot to mention that. I know that the current code allows for use variances, but our understanding is that's not used anymore and we've pulled it out of the new zoning ordinance. So that's the principal uses. We have a similar table for accessory uses, along with permissions and use-specific standards that apply in different districts. And we do have several temporary uses as well. Portable storage units are allowed. There are use-specific standards, and these standards establish requirements such as time limitations, location limitations on the lot, particularly for portable storage units. I just want to highlight some of the changes in the use regulations. So we have a couple of new residential housing types. There is cottage home development. So if you're not familiar with that, those look like smaller single-family homes, except they're organized around a common space, and they have shared parking facilities. They're a type of low-impact residential use, slightly more dense than single-family, but that is nevertheless compatible with a lot of existing single-family neighborhoods and could fit in well. There are updated communications tower standards, new RV park standards. We've taken the guidelines that the Commission adopted some time ago for self-storage facilities and brought them in as standards. And we also have new standards for overnight parking of commercial vehicles. So this restricts overnight parking of commercial vehicles not only in on land in residential districts, but also vehicles like 18-wheelers in Walmart parking lots and the like. We're getting near the end. Just a couple of more sections to go through. So Article 8, definitions and rules for construction, interpretation, and measurement. These are sort of very basic rules that aid in interpreting the entire document. So Section 8.1, these are general issues about construction of language. So what does the word shall mean? That's mandatory. What does the word may mean? Things like that. Section 8.2, we have rules of measurement. So we talk about, in the zone districts, we have maximum height, we have setback requirements. Section 8.2 discusses how to measure height, how to measure those setbacks. It also lists exceptions that are allowed to the setback requirements. So for example, you can have a porch that extends a little bit into the setback, and of course mailboxes can be in a required setback as well. Section 8.3, these are the definitions. So we have, closely reviewed every definition in your current code. We've added a lot of new definitions, especially for the uses, so every use is defined. And we will continue to add definitions as drafting continues. So the definitions you see here support Articles 1, 2, 3, and 4 that we're presenting as part of Module 1. But there will be additional definitions as we draft the development standards and the enforcement provisions and the nonconformity. You'll find the footnotes here helpful too as well. We identify whether a definition is an updated version of something in your current zoning ordinance, whether it's a term that's being newly defined, or whether we've decided to use a brand new definition instead of the one in the current zoning ordinance. Finally, Article 1, general provisions. These are a number of sort of provisions that every zoning ordinance has to have. Some of them are boilerplate. One that I do want to point out, it establishes rules for transitional applications. So if somebody files a development application with the city, it could be a rezoning, what have you, under the current zoning ordinance, but then before it gets to you and before it gets to city council, the city council adopts the new zoning ordinance. This section provides rules for how to handle that situation. Our next step, so we are drafting Module 2. Our goal is to have a draft of that done by the end of the year. And so we'll be coming back here early next year. We'll be releasing that draft to the public. And we'll be coming back and presenting to you and getting your input on that as well. After that, I'll just briefly, after Module 2 comes out and we get all the input, we'll be incorporating all of that input. Task 4 is to test the draft zoning and subdivision regulations. At that step in the process, we will be looking at 4 sites. We'll work with Robert to identify some good sites where there has been recent development to see what could be developed under the current ordinance versus what could be developed under the proposed new ordinance, to make sure that we're really hitting the mark and accomplishing what we set out to accomplish. Almost invariably, there are some changes that are made to the zoning ordinance because of the testing. That's why we do it. But once that's done, we will take all of the comment that we get and all of the modifications and produce a public hearing draft. And this is what is ready to go through the adoption process. And that is the presentation.
When's this going to be available?
So the Module 1 draft is currently available on the website.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, actually functioning.
Oh, okay.
And who in the world is going to know how to go from point A to point B? Meaning, what we're using now to where we're going.
So there's going to be,
Bonnie, you got this all down?
Nope.
At least you're honest, girl.
Yes, sir. So a part of their contract in the testing phase will be to teach staff how to use the actual new ordinance against new land development proposals, whether that's rezonings or proposals for new site developments. So there will be a lot of training that will have to be done.
Well, how about developers? I mean, how do you handle that when they're, I mean, they've done it for years, and now all of a sudden we're making changes, and I'm not complaining about changes. I'm just saying this is the real world.
I'll say that the draft zoning ordinance here is quite similar to a lot of other zoning ordinances. Most zoning ordinances within the last 10 to 20 years have that sort of zone district set up with the uses separated from the zone districts. They have consolidated use tables. The Smart Code, for example, has a consolidated use table, which is similar to what we're proposing here. So I think anybody who develops in jurisdictions outside of Montgomery probably are going to be pretty comfortable with this. And I think there is a learning curve, obviously, because it's very different than what you have now. But we're happy to sort of meet with folks, and we'll work with staff to train to show sort of how you implement the new zoning ordinance and how to work with it.
So there's going to be some on the front end that we're going to have a lot of questions about that we may or may not be able to get real answers. I mean, what I'm trying to say is they're in a meeting with somebody, with Jerry Kaiser, okay? Now, Jerry's been doing this for 50-something years, and he's, had it down and got a great reputation and blah, 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 blah. And all he's going to want to know from you is what can I do and what can't I do. That's all he wants to know. And he's going to want to go forward. And it seems like there's and I know you've run through this before, okay? There's got to be a learning curve, not only but somebody's going to tell somebody, yeah, you could, and somebody later on, he can't. And that's going to be a real problem. So I don't know how do you handle that? Live through it?
One of the things that we're trying to do with the new zoning ordinance is there is a good deal of ambiguity in it. One of the things that staff provided us that's been helpful that we've actually tried to incorporate in this draft is they've done a lot of, as similar situations come up, they have sort of come up with interpretive rules. David talked a little bit about that earlier, and we've tried to incorporate that into the ordinance. We have tried to be as precise as we can, so that if you're a landowner and a developer and you're wondering what you can do, you look at this document. And this document will tell you, you'll know your zoning district. There's a long list of uses which are defined, so you can see if the particular use that you want to do is allowed. And the development standards, which we have not drafted yet, will have measurable standards. We'll use numbers where possible, have percentage requirements, so that they understand exactly what's required. It is certainly different. There's no doubt about that, and I have no doubt there will be a learning curve. But I think that the additional precision and the way that the document is organized ultimately will be beneficial.
George, you got a question?
I got it. I have a few questions and a suggestion. In 1975, state government did the Code of Alabama over. Code of Alabama is about yay wide. What they did was they took the old section of the law and made a cross-reference to the new part, to the new reference in the law for the same thing. Section 40-14-40 used to be section 58-10- something else. I worked with it for years. You could do that. It would help a lot. I went through it. It would help a lot in trying to tell people what they're supposed to do. You refer to the new section is this one. The old section that you're thinking about was this one. And you won't use it more than 3 or 4 years till everybody gets used to it. But if you've got it when you start, then you'll be a whole lot better off. A cross-reference. And all it was just like, it started with section 1, which says the state of Alabama is defined as this, this, and this. And that reference to section 1 and the other one. But by the time you got down the line, title, which was a chapter, title 58 about 54, I can't even remember now, about taxes referred to Title 40 in the new one. Just that simple. A very basic document, but it'll be very useful. Okay, that's the end of my rant. I got some questions. The definitions in Section 8 of Part 8, they are for the entire document.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, other places in there, it's got definitions, like in Article 4, I said, it defines uses or something like that, right?
We do, yeah. As the introduction of the, as part of the introduction of the section, we talk about what the, how to read the principal use table and talk about what a principal use is and what is permitted by right and all of that.
You're going to have definitions in 2 places. Got that? Section 8's going to have definitions. Section 4 is going to have definitions of a different type, but definitions nonetheless.
We can certainly put those.
Okay. Let's see. Definitions, cross-reference. Okay. For you. Who approves this thing?
Who approves the overall zoning?
Yeah.
The final approval, I think, is what he's talking about.
Huh?
I think he's talking about the final approval.
No, I'm talking about the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah, he's talking about the overall, the new ordinance.
Right.
Assuming that, let's just say we were done and we've got module 1, module 2, all combined in one document.
Right.
So we would present it to you all first as the planning commission, and based on your recommendation, let's just say you recommend to approve it to the city council, then the next meeting at the city council would be the zoning ordinance document updated to be approved. And then once the city council approves it, it becomes the new zoning ordinance for the city of Montgomery, similar to the processes that we did for the smart code when it was applied in certain areas.
So the city council
approves it.
Yes.
And it replaces the current zoning ordinance. The smart code was added on. And we have to give variances to that when the Board of Adjustment meets. And someday you can fix that we don't have those kind of variances that Tanya's aware of. All right. I figured as much as what you said about the process, about who approves it. If y'all can find one person who reads the whole blooming thing, I would like to meet them. Okay?
This guy did.
Okay. No, somebody who knows the current zoning context in Montgomery and somebody who reads the new one.
Excellent point.
I'm going to read the parts that
We'll assign that to you,
pertains to
George.
me. One thing of current interest in this city to members of the city commission is something that we call event centers. Have you heard of them? Have you heard what a problem they have become? Are you going to fix it?
We're working with Robert to, I should probably speak.
Okay.
We are working with Robert, and staff is also pointing out areas of issue which we've tried to incorporate into the draft. We've clearly probably missed some places, and that's what we're looking for feedback about.
Another suggestion, don't let that get by you, either one of you guys, right? Okay. Thank you, fellas. I'm done. I'm George Howell, for the record. Live in Somerset, treasurer of the association, member of the Board of Adjustment.
Just good old guy.
And I don't know what all,
Just
as
been
Andy
around
Griffith
a-
used to
just
say.
been around a
Thank you
while,
very
haven't
much.
you, George? And one of my classmates. True.
Let me ask you this. About, I don't know, about 6 or 7 months ago, we had an issue that came up where they wanted to make a facility data collection server facility. And of course, in '63, there was nothing like that. Do you have is that what you were referring to in establishing transitional provisions in order to update things that will be coming within the next 15 years that we have no idea about right now?
We've tried to do that. I'm looking through. I don't know that we have added data center as a use. That is a use that we've included in a number of recent zoning ordinances because, one of our clients is Henrico County, Virginia, which is where, that's where AOL was. There's a lot of data centers out there. That's not one in there. We can certainly add that, and we can define it, identify appropriate districts for that use, and we can do that.
Because it doesn't fall under any of the stuff that we were discussing.
Right, yeah.
So just to add a little bit to that, and I don't know if the text amendment that was just recently done has made it to the council yet. But
Yeah, it's done.
it is done.
Wait. I can't remember.
I think it skipped a
It may
month.
be coming up.
Yeah, it may be coming up. So I think you all just approved a text amendment to the existing zoning ordinance where data center was added under the M1 light industrial category, I think, zoning category. And so it's brand new, and I don't think we've had a chance to tell them about that. So that would carry forward into the new zoning ordinance itself for data centers or any other new trend that's actually out there.
And that's the thing about new trends, because what we have today might not be what we have 15, and you're not going to update it within the next 15
Right. Which is why it is so important to take 60 years before you update it, because a lot has changed, and it is important to do updates more frequently than what has been done with the current document right now. And I mean it is because you miss so many trends, and unfortunately staff gets used to doing things a certain way, and people get so used to doing things a certain way that every change and trend that's going on has passed us by, and we're behind by so many years. And yeah, people get used to doing things a certain way and maybe a little kind of resistant to change. I hate to say that, but just to say that in that way. So yes.
I think just two brief things. That reminded me of something. We will incorporate that once it's adopted. Our understanding is that the city is also working on regulations for short-term rentals like Airbnbs. So when those are completed and adopted, you won't find anything about short-term rentals in here. Whatever the city adopts, we will incorporate into here. And the other point is, one thing about this code, it is designed so that you can make sort of small amendments over time.
Yeah.
So if you want to add in a use, it's actually quite easy to just stick a new line in the use table, identify where it's allowed, and define it, and then you're done. And so it's, many of our clients, they work on very different schedules. There are some communities that have sort of a yearly update cycle, and they sort of once a year update their zoning ordinance to incorporate new uses or other changes the community wants. And there are some that, don't make a lot of changes, but do sort of comprehensive overhauls every 5 to 10 years. So those are options. Once this is adopted, I think it's important to think of it as something that's flexible.
Yeah.
Data centers are new. Nobody in 1963 would have thought of those. Probably nobody in 1993 would have thought of those. But one of my favorite examples are bars where you throw axes, which is not something that,
exactly.
I would have thought of 5 years ago.
Exactly.
And so it's important to be flexible and to, update your zoning ordinance as circumstances change.
We've had problems not too far back. Single-family houses near colleges being turned into dormitories. Would that be covered in there?
Yeah, it's hard because that gets into enforcement. So We will be drafting the enforcement regulations as part of Module 2, and we'll try to strengthen those. It can be hard to, you need the staff and the resources to be able to do the enforcement. I know that's come up several times, different types of enforcement issues, and it's a hard thing to do, especially for something such as, if there's scrap being piled outdoors where it's not allowed and that's open and obvious, that's one thing. If it's folks living in a house who maybe shouldn't be living there, it's just hard to do.
Anything else? Robert?
No, I know Miss Gamble has a question I think she'd like to address to you all. So.
Absolutely.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Sandra Gamble. My residence is at 102 West Woodland Drive, 36105. And Mr. Reed, you stated when you first opened up that our problem is communication. And I've been here since 4:30 witnessing people able to come in and discuss what's going on in their community.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, we didn't get this opportunity with the tower. And my request tonight is that we would appreciate it if some of you all could come to our area and discuss what's going on in our district, because we don't have a clue. I questioned Mr. Smith about that tower. He didn't know about it. I questioned Mr. Tate about the tower. He didn't know about it. So other people made a decision about where I live at. I thought we were in a democracy, not a dictatorship, where 5, 6 people make a decision about where my property is and what they do. So now we have 3 towers within a quarter-mile radius, 15 feet 5 inches tall. My house is 14 feet tall. My grandson builds and repairs these towers. So I know the problem they bring, because he tells me. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
So from this point on, we need to know, because the tower is already being built. And it's 2 of them already out there. I moved back in my daddy's house. My daddy was a builder. He built a sound house over off Court Street. So now the tower is coming up 5 blocks from my house. The other one is 4 blocks from the house. The other one is 2 blocks from the house. So whenever you all are making decisions I welcome change, what you're doing, because this way, what I heard him talk about informing people and bringing people to the table about property, I pay taxes. I'm a veteran, and I pay taxes.
What's the
in
tower?
this country.
What's the tower being used for?
AT&T. It's the same tower that I understand that the city was sued about.
Hold on a second.
I didn't understand you.
Yes, this is a tower on South Court Street. It's kind of over by the old WSFA, but on the other side of Court Street. And it did have a public hearing. It went to the Board of Adjustment, and we put a public hearing sign on the property on Court Street, and we also advertised in the paper. So we did what we were supposed to. We didn't even have to post a sign. That's a courtesy, but we do that for everything.
You don't have to post a sign. You don't have. The courtesy is to notify the community. Now, I don't ride up and down the street looking for signs. That's not what I do. That's not what I do. We have mail. We have other ways to communicate. I don't get the paper. I don't read Montgomery Advertiser. So it's other ways need to be found to do this. Most of the people living in the community are elderly people. We already have enough junk going on over there anyway. So I'm not accepting that for notification. Not in this era. We do everything. We do Facebook. We do everything else. We don't.
The agendas are also advertised online, so there's a notice posted on the site. The agendas are posted online, and there's a notice in the newspaper. So the only thing that
I don't
isn't-
read the newspaper.
We can't do everything.
I'm not saying you can do everything, but when I call our city planner and he doesn't know, and I called our chief inspector and he didn't know,
Did you call
I got a problem.
Did you call your city councilman?
No, I didn't call the city council.
Do you know who your city councilman is?
It was Audrey Graham.
Okay. Do you know?
But-
Do you know who your county commissioner is?
That is Carmen Ziegler.
Okay. I think the councilman and the commissioner should be brought in the loop too. I mean, with the meeting is what I'm saying.
I
They
understand.
should be
Listen,
brought in.
I'm not saying, what I'm saying is, when they don't know,
Yes, ma'am. I understand what you're saying.
okay, when they don't know,
Yes, ma'am.
I have a problem with that.
Yes, ma'am.
Because they need to know. If I pick up the phone and call them, they need to know what's going on.
Well, I think your councilman should know too.
I'm not saying they shouldn't know. What I'm
Right.
saying is,
Right. No, I
he's the
understand.
city planner,
I understand.
and he did not know.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't care about no other excuses. We are not to be left out anymore about what goes on over there. Not as long as I'm living.
Yes, ma'am.
And my name is Sandra Gamble. And I can leave my information. That's all I'm saying. I had the neighborhood president here. The community is upset. Because that's right over their houses. We got 3 towers. And like I said, my grandson built these towers. And he told me the damage they do. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
So none of you guys live over there.
I didn't understand what you said they're used for.
The AT&T, you know.
Yeah, so these are cell phone towers that she's
okay.
talking about. And I think there's one that's under construction right now, and it's adjacent to her house.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
So, no, I'm not satisfied. I'm not pleased at all. At all. And thank God we're not in Africa because they pull them down. Thank you.
After the meeting, ma'am, I'll leave you my number and I'll get your number. And so, hopefully we can get with the council person, maybe the county commissioner and get clarification on things.
Yeah, I mean, I know Carmen.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And, yeah, I know
All right.
Audrey.
All
I
right.
know the new one just coming in. But, it's
Yes,
done.
ma'am. It's the principle of the
It's
thing.
the
Yes.
principle.
Yes, ma'am.
They need to know what's going on in this city.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And I see you're the last one. Jeff is just going back over the new cell tower guidelines.
Sure.
And he's going to tell you a little bit about
Sure.
that. That may help in the future.
Absolutely. And do you have that breakdown of what entity, whatever it goes through?
Yeah, so the draft includes new cell communications tower regulations, and one is that the applicant needs to show that there's not, one of the things they need to show is that there's not an existing tower nearby
Right.
that they can co-locate on.
Right.
I was a little bit surprised to hear that there were so many towers in such close proximity. So if there is a regulation such as that, that might help in the future.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, Mr. Chairman, that's all that we have. Thank you for being the last one to stick it through.
Take the heat. The last one. Take the heat.
Take the heat, yes, sir.
All right.
That's what we get. That's why we get paid the big bucks to take the
That's
heat.
what we get paid the big bucks for.
Yeah.
Thank you very much,
Yes,
everybody.
yes,
Meeting
sir. Thank
adjourned.
you.